what's happening in the market. A nice little moon mission as things are going up quite precipitously. Things are looking pretty good. And really what it comes down to is three things: liquidity, economy, institutions. These are the rules that we're looking at, the things that we're looking at for the 2026 market. And of course, today we can see that things are looking pretty good. Bitcoin was over 97,000. I want to say 97.4, somewhere around there. But in the last hour or so, it's dipped down just a little bit. Ethereum, everything is pretty much up across the board. Just taking a look at the last 24 hours or so. Monero up 18%. The big play, I think, recently has been privacy coins. You can see Monero, you can see Dash, you can see Zcash. Although Zcash, even though it's up like 3 or 4%, excuse me, I should take that back, 12% over the last 24 hours. Over the last year, it's up 738%. So maybe privacy is the big thing. But that's just one aspect of the market. So if we're taking a look today at liquidity, economy, institutions, what's happening in those sectors? Well, this is a great reminder from Kobishi letter. I didn't realize it was going up this much. US M2 money supply jumped 1.65 trillion in 2025 to a record $26.7 trillion. Now, everybody talks about how important liquidity is, and I agree, but I have to ask myself is, how much liquidity do we possibly need? We're at a record 26.7 trillion. Those funds should be flowing into crypto a little bit more. That's my personal opinion. Maybe I'm just a little bit biased. I guess I would be, since I have a channel called Digital Asset News. But it is just perplexing to me, the amount of liquidity and not the amount of inflows that we should have. Anyhow, this marks the largest annual increase since 2021. I don't know if you remember this thing called the coronavirus. And back then, we printed money like crazy. But this is the largest increase since that time frame. Money supply, and to put this in perspective, the money supply has grown $116 billion per month. Isn't that insane? So if we take a look at the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, we can see the M2 money supply as it's been growing exponentially. And you can see on this chart, it doesn't look like it's a big deal. You're like, really? That's $1.6 trillion? Yeah, you go from $21 trillion, somewhere around there, 21.6, then you're at 22.4, which isn't really even a trillion as it shows here. But data is a little bit laggard as far as like this, the Fed. So I take a look at this and go, that is plenty of liquidity and things are looking good. And maybe things are catching up into the crypto market. So we have that. And then we talk about institutions. Well, the ETF just had a massive inflow. And it's amazing to me how these guys were able to pick this apart and just hit it. It seems like we had a very large, didn't seem like we did, it is, 13th of January, which is yesterday. We had an inflow of $754 million of inflow. And of course, wow, the largest wasn't even BlackRock. It was Fidelity. That's a first, 351 million versus 126 million. But hey, there might be enough Bitcoin to go around. And then we had two good inflows. Let's see, that was Monday, Tuesday. Today's Wednesday. We'll get the data out pretty soon. But it's amazing to me how like either this moves the market or these guys know something I don't. Because the same thing happened weeks ago, 26th December, 29th December, had an outflow, then a little bit of inflow, and then out. And we had 2 days of massive inflows and then 4 straight days of outflows. You got 471 and 697 on the 5th of January, then 243, 40, 628, and 250. That's a large outflow for the ETF. So even though today seems great, which it is, just, you know, keep your hat on. I don't think it's going to be a big blow off top, but I could be wrong. But to put things in perspective, I mean, this is, you know, the 6th largest inflow. The largest was November 7th of 1.38 billion, then March 12th, 1.05. November, June 4th, October 7th, so January 13th, 6th largest. So this could be the catalyst for the big thing, but, you know, we've been fooled before, so I am cautiously optimistic. And then let's not forget Michael Saylor buying Bitcoin like crazy. Looks like they just bought 1.25 billion. This wasn't today. This was January 12th. So this was on Monday. So it's a little bit of a laggard of a story on my part. But I just thought it was interesting, just, you know, how much Bitcoin is getting scooped up, and we have massive here, we have massive here, we have a nice little increase in price action. So things are doing quite well, and that would take care of the liquidity in some of the institutions. Now, as far as macro goes, I just thought it was, I mean, we know that CPI and PPI numbers are down. Well, either they hit their expectations or are down a little bit. So the inflation may not be a huge problem like Jerome Powell seems to think. But also I found this interesting. Existing home sales just came out today. And I don't know why anybody will be selling. Well, I can see why they're selling houses right now. They're overinflated prices. So the previous was 4.14 million. The expectation was 4.22. It looks like people are selling their houses at a rapid rate, 4.35 million. So like we had roughly 200,000 over what the expectation was. So homes are being sold. People are getting locked into a higher interest rate, roughly, I don't know, 6.75%, whatever it is. Correct me in the comment section. And that's a pretty good move. I mean, for the home sellers, home buyers, I'm not for sure, but let them have it. And that would be a little bit of the economy. And then also, we were talking about this this morning, which was the Supreme Court will not issue a decision on the Trump tariff. If you're not familiar, this went all the way to the Supreme Court. Donald Trump and the administration currently are heavy with tariffs for other countries. Of course, the companies in the United States pay for those tariffs. We all know this, right? They bring something in from China. They have to sell. They have to pay the U.S. government, like Walmart, Target, whatever. They have to pay the U.S. government whatever the percentage is as far as the tariff. So the companies, American companies, are paying the tariffs. Does that make sense, everybody? The American companies are paying the tariffs. That goes into the government. The government uses whatever it wants to. They said there was going to be potentially a stimmy check or something coming in next year. Don't know if that's going to happen. But it did look like it did go to some of the different military personnel. Anyhow, the Supreme Court said, we don't know if this is lawful. We're going to see if this is. And if that happens, and then they strike it down, which it looks like if you take a look at some of the predictive markets, looks like it's a 75% chance this will be struck down. That means that all the funds that were collected by the U.S. government from these American corporations will flow back to those American corporations. And that will be good for the market. Let's just be honest. Now all these corporations are flush with cash. Everybody's happy. Looks like that's the way it's going to go. Unfortunately, it's going to be a big bargaining chip against the Trump administration for them to do things with other countries. But this isn't a political channel. I'm just telling you this is the macro, and it would probably be good. However, if it does get upheld, I could see that Bitcoin will be somewhat of a winner as people go risk off, but we'll see. And on top of that, looks like moving averages, which the TA people love to talk about. We're in between the 100 and the 50-week moving average. I got to tell you, we're pretty close. The 100-week simple moving average was 86,000, and the 50-week is 101. So, I mean, I thought today we might go back to 100K. We were at 97, like I said, 97.3. So pretty close. Maybe we get that 50-week moving average. That'll be the area of resistance, as the TA folks call it. But the big question that always comes down to is this. Is this going to keep going on or not? I don't know. Nobody knows. And if they say they know, they're full of it. However, I would remind everybody of this thing called the relief rally. And I'm not for sure this is what it is. I don't really care if it is or not. I'm still going to buy Bitcoin every single day, like I've been doing now for I don't know how long. And this was back in 2021. Remember those days? Those were good days. November 8th, 2021, 67,000 was the high. And then it kind of came down, and then people were like, don't worry, bro, it's going to keep going up. And it just kept going down. And then we go down. And then in January, the midterm year, 2022, like we're on 2026, we bottomed around 35,000 as a local bottom. We didn't bottom at 35,000. I believe it went to 17,000. But then there was this thing in January where the prices started going up. Everybody's happy again. They're like, see, I told you. It was Chinese New Year. People, they're just selling their Bitcoin for profits. And then, taxes, people had to sell for taxes. Don't forget about the taxes. We hear about that. And then it kept going. And like we'd move sideways, just like we are now. And then it went up to 47,000 in March. Everybody's super happy. They're like, we're back, baby. And then, of course, we know what happened in 2022. Everything collapsed. And then we had 17,000. But isn't it funny how what this looks like to what this looks like? I know. I just want to give it. I just want to give you the information that you can use, and this is starting to look a lot like what I just showed you before. So, I mean, it could be anything. There is some differences for sure, obviously, right? Like we didn't have that much liquidity last time. Rates are a little bit different. We didn't have tariffs, and you know, in 2021, we didn't have an ETF. We didn't have the institutions that are here. So things are definitely different. I'm just trying to point out that there are some similarities moving forward. Anyhow, let me think about that in the comments section. But there is one big thing on the underlying tone. And I don't want to make this political, but you know, when war breaks out, it's ugly. And I think there's going to be something that's going to happen with Iran. And if you don't know, there's massive protests going on in Iran. Apparently, from what I understand, people are getting massacred over there, which is just awful, awful thing. Awful, awful thing. And this is happening. Saudi Arabia denies U.S. airspace for potential Iran strikes amid deadly protests. I don't know why Saudi Arabia would come out and say that. Like, hey, we're not going to allow the United States to pull out a military action in our airspace unless maybe the U.S. government went to Saudi Arabia and said, hey, we'd like to use your airspace for an air attack against Iran. I'm not for sure. But on top of that, Iran has come out and is warning countries in the region that it will attack U.S. bases on their territory if Trump attacks Iran. And this was just from Fox, where they said U.S. military bases in the Middle East are being evacuated right now as we speak. And that's it for today. So see how that unfolds. So that's it for today. Like today's video, thumbs up, subscribe, all that great stuff. Now let's get into a little Q&A and I'll answer all your questions. Let's do it. Let's see. I was like, what is this? Joey says, how's your dad doing? I'm getting gutters to my mom's house and we're working the circuit breaker. I mean, personally, I know Joey. I think Joey could do all these things. He's just being nice. All right, Aristotle. Rob, this is a question. With the brutal IRGC turning off the internet in Iran, and 90 million people in the dark, how does that impact Bitcoin application? No internet, then crypto is worthless. As far as like, well, first of all, as far as like Bitcoin and node operators or Bitcoin and mining operations, some people have attributed electricity going out, internet going out, to a decrease in the hash rate for the Bitcoin infrastructure. And I took a look at the hash rate. Let's take a look at it again. Maybe I'm wrong. Hash rate. It looked like there was a drop, but it seems to be that this is like a normal occurrence with Bitcoin hash rate. I mean, look at this. This is going back to October. It just fluctuates quite wildly. And 15th of December, maybe this is during those time frames, so I'm not for sure. But as far as like internet, this is the great thing about Bitcoin, is because if you take a look at, if I can find it, let's see if this shows us. This is near, this isn't even close. Thank you. Global Bitcoin nodes distribution. This is the great thing about Bitcoin. As long as we have a node up and running, we can run Bitcoin across the world. And not only that, I believe they have a node that's in the space station. So if we take a look at this, as far as like the United States, this is how many node operators there are. 2,600, 10%. Germany, France, Canada, Finland, Netherlands. So that's the great thing. If you don't think that Bitcoin is decentralized, then there you go. There's your proof. And then as far as like, can people use Bitcoin? Well, in Iran, I think that's what Plato's trying to get at. There was this there was this application called BitChat. And BitChat was created by Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey, former owner of Twitter, sold it for X, also multi-billionaire with, you know, Stripe and Cash App and trying to push Bitcoin. He was a big believer into it. And BitChat is able to use Bluetooth and radio waves, I think. BitChat's a peer-to-peer messaging app that uses Bluetooth low energy mesh networks, allowing users to send encrypted messages on the internet. Censorship resistant, rapid, blah, 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 blah. And the big thing is you can use that and you can transact in Bitcoin. So to answer your question, with that, you can use it. Although, I don't know how many people are really using Bitcoin in Iran. I will say that if they kept that in the Iranian currency, it would be worth absolutely zero right now, or almost zero. So hopefully they would do something like that. Okay, what else we got? Zcash? Yeah, I think I mentioned it. It's up 700% this year. Congratulations. I say that with such angst because I don't have any. Just the truth. Yeah, and then Jim says, I've seen reports of Elon enabling Starlink in Iran. I've also seen that too. But even if you don't have it, I guess you just use that Bitstamp. But the thing is, BitChat or whatever it's called. But the thing is, though, is that to be able to download that, I think you need to pre-download that beforehand. No, that's not true. I guess if you have somebody and you're Bluetooth enabled, you could just send it over to them. I think. Correct me in the comments, but I think that's how it could actually work. But yeah, BitChat uses Bluetooth. My wife loves that. What do you think of this Clarity Act? Seems like a massive transfer of power to the big players yet again. I'm not surprised that everyone is cheering it on. Yeah, after yesterday's video when we talked about it, there's a lot of concerns about that bill. And it looks like we're giving all of our powers that be up to the big conglomerates. That would be Coinbase for one, and a couple of handful of players. We want things so badly. I just don't think we've taken enough time to look at it. It's the same thing with, like I said, Gary Gensler. We were all happy when he came in. What a disaster that was. Let's see. I know Bitcoin in places like Afghanistan has used a lot to help women and families. That's great. Elon is a long-time BSer. Let's be honest, we're all BSers. Yeah, and to leave this there, this is a good one. Up. A lot of crap is going on globally. It's scary. It sure is. That's just how things happen. Don't worry. There's better days ahead. It's just we have to keep pushing through. Anyhow, that's it for today, everybody. Like today's video, thumbs up, subscribe, all that great stuff. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. NFA Lives with me on my show. So it'll be Ben and Guy, and we'll talk about what the heck is going on tomorrow. Anyhow, thanks so much, everybody. See you in the next one. Adios.